Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your most intriguing sources and distill the absolute essence, giving you that shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're plunging into a truly unique narrative, one that intertwines profound spiritual journeys with the tumultuous birth of an ancient faith. It's a story drawn from a truly remarkable source.
Indeed. Our mission today is to explore excerpts from a 1942 book titled PAULO E ESTÉVÃO, psychographed by Chico Xavier, based on the spiritual author Emmanuel. Now, for listeners who might be new to this, psychography essentially means automatic writing or spirit writing, where the author acts as, well, a channel for a spiritual entity. It gives us a truly unique lens into these historical figures.
That's fascinating in itself.
It really is. And what's fascinating here is how this narrative offers such a deeply personal and emotionally charged account of two pivotal figures in early Christianity, Stephen and Saul, who would later become Paul. It offers this lens into their struggles, their profound transformations, and the very foundations of their beliefs. All of this unfolds within the complex and, frankly, often brutal context of intense Roman and Jewish societal dynamics of that era.
Right, that tension is palpable.
Exactly. It's a story that reveals, I think, the astonishing depths of human suffering and also the powerful capacity for spiritual rebirth.
And it kicks off in a setting that, on the surface, seems almost idyllic, right? But as our sources quickly reveal, it harbors this deep, seething injustice. You picture Corinth, bathed in gentle morning light with what should be the sweet scent of perfumed breezes. Yet the central streets are described as almost deserted. You don't see the smile of its children, which immediately signals that something is profoundly wrong beneath that beautiful facade. There's this tension bubbling just beneath the surface. What a way to set the scene.
It's incredibly effective, isn't it? The author uses that seemingly peaceful imagery to create this stark contrast with the immediate reality we then encounter. And into this unsettling scene, we're introduced to Josdeeb, an elderly man. He's enduring a horrifying, truly humiliating public assault from Roman officials, successive and merciless blows striking his venerable face.
Awful.
You can just feel his physical helplessness against their raw, unrestrained power. Yet what the source highlights is that internally, he's experiencing a dull revolt and a flaming indignation burning in his eyes. He's physically subjugated, sure, but his spirit, his inner essence, is absolutely incandescent with this unyielding rage and a desperate desire for justice.
That internal conflict is so striking. Here's this man, rooted in centuries of tradition, grappling with his ingrained understanding of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth from prophetic teachings.
Sure.
He believed in that, that divine retribution, a deep-seated demand for proportional justice.
Right, it was part of his core understanding of the world.
But the cruel irony is that his aging, encarcelado arms, scarred by a lifetime of struggle, are utterly useless against his oppressors. He just couldn't physically enact the revenge his spirit craved. That must have been an agonizing, debilitating realization for a man who felt so wronged. It really forces us to confront the limitations of a purely retributive mindset when faced with overwhelming power.
That's a crucial point. It forces us to acknowledge the inadequacy of simply wishing for an eye when you're physically helpless. And what's truly compelling is how this internal struggle sets the stage for a different kind of justice, one not based on earthly retribution, but spiritual reckoning, which we'll see Jaziel embody later on.
Okay.
And the narrative immediately provides the deep context for Josdeeb's deep-seated grievance. We learn this isn't an isolated incident. Josdeeb has this painful history with Questor Licinius Minucius, who had previously stripped him of substantial land and even imprisoned him. So this public humiliation isn't just random, it's the latest chapter in a long-standing pattern of systemic oppression, one that has clearly pushed Josdeeb to the very brink. It's a deliberate crushing of a man's spirit over time.
And the injustice just escalates. It really piles on the torment. Josdeeb's son, Jaziel, offered really wise counsel, almost a premonition, advising his father against seeking any legal redress from Licinius, knowing full well he was a notoriously corrupt official.
Yeah, he saw it coming.
But Josdeeb, blinded by his desperate desire for justice, for any glimmer of hope, wouldn't listen. He goes to the legate not just hoping, but expecting reparations for all he's lost. And instead, the crushing order comes down. His last humble farm, his family's final foothold, is confiscated, and he's given only 3 days to leave. 3 days. What kind of empathy is that?
It's beyond cruel. It's designed to break a man entirely. Our source paints this vivid picture. Josdeeb, this old, weary man, gets on his knees, pleading for pity for the sake of his 2 children who are 2 hopes of the heart. This isn't just about property anymore, it's about the very future of his family.
Of course.
And the legate's response is absolutely chilling in its indifference. He's so devoid of compassion that he orders his soldiers to strike Josdeeb carefully to avoid scandalous public bleeding.
Oh, wow.
Not out of concern for Josdeeb, but simply to prevent a public scandal. It highlights the casual barbarity of the Roman authority and the dehumanization of those they oppressed. Just reducing a human being to a mere inconvenience.
You can almost feel Josdeeb's descent into supreme desolation as he heads home. The prospect of his family's utter destitution, losing absolutely everything, is an unbearable weight. And it's in this moment of raw, unbridled desperation where all hope seems lost, that his mind becomes obsessed by the idea of reparation and revenge. He sets fire to Licinius's pastures.
Yep.
It's not calculated. It seems like an impulsive, desperate lashing out, born of pure anguish and that profound sense of injustice. What's chilling here is how this desperate act, born from his own intense suffering, spirals so badly out of control.
Absolutely. This scene lays bare a profound truth. The moment we act solely out of a desire for retribution, we risk losing control of the outcome. The justice we seek becomes indistinguishable from the very suffering we condemn. This is where the cycle of suffering truly entraps him. The fire spreads rapidly, uncontrollably, and in a tragic, heartbreaking twist, it results in the deaths of two of Licinius's best servants, Caio and Rufo.
Oh no.
But here's the crushing detail that elevates this beyond mere consequence. These weren't just servants, they were Josdeeb's best friends.
Wow, his best friends.
His best friends. This act of vengeance, born of his own profound suffering, consumes the innocent, including those he held dear. It's a critical turning point that underscores the destructive nature of unchecked vengeance. It shows how it inevitably hurts those you never intended. A poignant lesson about the collateral damage of rage.
The narrative takes an even more poignant turn when Jezreel returns. He's got scorched robes and slightly wounded hands, having actually helped fight the very fire his father started. Can you imagine the profound irony? The sheer bitter weight of that moment?
It's almost unbearable to contemplate.
Josdeeb tearfully confesses the arson and the unjust sentence that drove him to it. You might expect a furious reaction from Jezreel, maybe anger at his father's rashness, but what we get is so much more profound, so much more spiritually insightful.
Indeed. Jezreel's response is a testament to an unwavering faith and a truly elevated understanding of divine law. He gently reminds his father, with profound compassion, "Our God is of justice and wisdom. Let us trust in his protection." He doesn't condone the act, nor does he preach condemnation. Instead, he shifts the focus from earthly revenge and immediate consequence to spiritual accountability and a deeper understanding of God's will.
A different perspective entirely.
Completely. He carefully calls attention to the spiritual cost of their actions, noting that harming God's creation and their innocent friends, Caio and Rufo, directly contradicted the teaching of love. It's a spiritual rebuke, yes, but one delivered with immense love and a foresight that suggests a path beyond mere retribution.
It sets up this incredible contrast, doesn't it? Between the father's very human, perhaps Old Testament-driven desire for retribution and the son's burgeoning understanding of a higher, more compassionate law, a radical shift. And then the chilling moment that seals their fate, the family's arrest. Josdeeb takes one final tearful gaze at his beloved home, a farewell to everything he knew. And Jezreel, in a silent gesture, displays profound resignation and a calm acceptance. It's a deep, quiet strength that foreshadows so much more to come, a kind of peaceful surrender.
And the suffering doesn't end there. In fact, it deepens significantly as they enter the Corinto prison, described as an old house of dark, damp corridors. The source uses these details to paint a picture of squalor and despair. Yet, even in this grim, confining setting, a single grated window offers a symbolic connection to the outside world, a tiny sliver of light, and perhaps a metaphorical breath of hope in their desolate situation, suggesting that even in the darkest places, a connection to something larger persists.
Even in this grim setting, Abigail's faith shines through with astonishing clarity and resilience. She poses a truly profound question, one that sort of defies immediate understanding for most in their situation. Won't it be a happiness in this world to be able to suffer something for the love of God?
Incredible, isn't it?
It really is. She articulates this belief that God allows suffering not as punishment, but as a means to educate his children, beautifully comparing it to a loving father teaching ignorant younger children. It's a perspective that utterly reframes their ordeal, turning agony into a lesson and despair into spiritual growth. How remarkable to hold such a view in the face of such crushing adversity.
It's a perspective that reveals a deep spiritual maturity far beyond her years. But the torment for Jezdeeb continues relentlessly, unceasingly. He endures another 20 lashes, crying out, "Lord, have mercy, mercy!" And it's here that Jeziel's heroic act of self-sacrifice truly stands out, elevating him in the narrative. He steps forward, claiming responsibility for the fire to spare his already weakened and tormented father, enduring 20 lashes with heroism and noble serenity.
Wow.
A stark, powerful contrast to his father's deep debility. It's a moment of immense filial love, yes, but also a profound display of spiritual fortitude, a deliberate choice to absorb suffering for another.
And the legate's cruelty seems to know no bounds, no limit to his sadism. Enraged by Rufal's death, remember, Jezdeeb's friend, he orders Jezdeeb's hands and feet beaten until he cannot walk, ensuring maximum pain and incapacitation.
Just brutal.
This horrific torture, as the source makes clear, leads directly to Jezdeeb's death. A slow, agonizing end. Then, the grim sentence for Jeziel. Captivity in the galleys, a fate equated to nothing less than ruin and death. Abigail's despair is palpable in the source. She knows no one returns from galley slavery. It's a profound, irreparable loss for her, severing that last familial tie she held.
Her release from prison then throws her into utter solitude. The world she emerges into is described as chaotic. She's a stranger among so many restless creatures, without family or home, utterly adrift. She seeks refuge with Sustenia, a kind widow who can only offer a friendly heart but no material aid, as she herself lives on charity. It emphasizes Abigail's extreme vulnerability and the harsh reality of her situation, truly at the mercy of others.
Her initial desperation, completely understandable given her situation, leads her to consider begging the legate for a small piece of land, clinging to this faint, almost naive hope for Jeziel's impossible return. But Sustenia, with practical wisdom born of hardship, advises against it, knowing the futility of appealing to such a cruel and indifferent official.
Right, pointless.
This pushes Abigail to undertake an arduous journey to Cenchrea to find Zacharias, an old family friend. The narrative vividly highlights her extreme physical and emotional exhaustion upon arrival, emphasizing the sheer will and deep resilience that kept her going through such a desolate period.
And here, finally, a glimmer of light appears, a moment of profound human kindness in a world of suffering. Zacharias and Ruth, having recently lost their own son, offer Abigail a truly compassionate welcome. They adopt her.
That's amazing.
It's a deeply touching act of solidarity that speaks to the deeper human connection forged through shared loss and empathy. Abigail then succumbs to a 3-day fever-induced delirium, a physical manifestation of the immense trauma she has endured, a period of healing for her body after the agony of her spirit.
Meanwhile, Jeziel's path to redemption and transformation begins in a damp cell where he spends 30 days. His once vibrant appearance, full of youthful vigor, is replaced by a painful and gloomy expression, a physical manifestation of his intense suffering and the psychological toll. He's then transferred to a commercial galley, where he battles a severe fever and purulent sores. The captain's fear of contagion underscores his dire condition, making his survival seem precarious, almost a miracle. He's truly at rock bottom.
Yet it's in this extreme adversity, this abyss of suffering, that Jeziel's true transformation unfolds. The source tells us he performs this selfless act of caring for Sergius Paulus, a young Roman official also gravely ill. Jeziel, a prisoner and a victim of Roman cruelty, applies home remedies, recites ancient passages from the prophets that he holds dear, and offers consolations and fraternal affection.
To a Roman official.
This transformation from suffering prisoner to compassionate caregiver, ministering to someone who represents his former oppressors, is absolutely central to his journey towards a higher purpose. It demonstrates the radical power of empathy, even for one's perceived enemies, and how suffering can refine rather than corrupt the human spirit.
And Sergius Paulus, remarkably, responds to this unexpected kindness. Grateful for Jeziel's care, he arranges Jeziel's freedom in Joppa, providing him with money and clothes. He even advises him to avoid the port due to curious and malicious Roman sailors, a final act of protection, a small echo of human decency in a brutal system. But Jeziel is still in a weakened state when he arrives in Joppa, physically depleted.
This leads to a chance encounter with Irinu, who, despite some initial deception, a twist that adds to the precariousness of Jeziel's situation, leads him to Ephraim, one of the men of the way. Ephraim's immediate and understanding welcome is striking, a balm to Jeziel's weary soul. He's not the first patient the Christ sends to my door. It signals that Jeziel is entering a community where suffering is understood, where compassion is the currency, and where a higher purpose guides their actions. It's a haven.
The journey to Jerusalem in a carefully veiled cart emphasizes the secrecy and vulnerability of their travel, doesn't it? hinting at the nascent Christian community's precarious existence in a hostile world. They arrive at Simon Peter's house, which is described as outwardly very poor, unassuming, maybe even humble, but inwardly overflowing with sick and helpless people. It's a powerful image of humble service, a stark contrast to the opulence and power of the Roman and Jewish establishments.
It truly is a powerful depiction. Peter's compassionate leadership is evident in the tireless work of the apostles, James, John, Philip, and his daughters, who are constantly assisting the suffering. A genuine example of selfless service. Jaziel witnesses Peter's fraternal self-denial, his complete giving of himself, and he develops this deep affection for Peter, seeing him as an affectionate son to a legitimate father. This mentorship is absolutely crucial for Jaziel's spiritual awakening, guiding him deeper into understanding the way.
And as Jaziel fully recovers, his intellectual and spiritual curiosity reignites. He begins asking pivotal questions about the Messiah, questions that have likely plagued his mind for years, questions at the very heart of his Jewish heritage. Peter's revelation is world-shattering for him. Jesus has already come and was crucified right here in Jerusalem among thieves, followed by the account of the resurrection, a claim that defied all conventional understanding.
This is a profound, life-altering moment of realization for Jaziel. He feverishly connects Jesus' life and suffering to the prophecies of Isaiah, recognizing him as the promised Messiah, the long-awaited Redeemer. The source tells us he devoured Levi's or Matthew's gospel, especially the Sermon on the Mount, finding in it the treasure of life, the key to human enigmas. He sees in Jesus' teachings the ultimate answer to the suffering and injustice he's witnessed and endured.
That must have been incredibly powerful.
Immensely. He then emotionally confesses his past tragedy, the whole ordeal with his father, to Peter, who, true to his character as the compassionate shepherd, offers solace and profound acceptance, not judgment. It's a complete spiritual transformation for Jaziel, a reorientation of his entire being.
And this spiritual transformation sets the stage for his public ministry, his dedication to the path he has now embraced. The increasing demands on this burgeoning community of the way necessitate the appointment of 7 deacons. And Jaziel, now fully recovered and spiritually mature, is chosen and given the name Stephen Estevão in the original Portuguese. His impact is immediate and profound. His words, inspired by the divine source of the gospel, bring healing, hope, and courage to the sick and dispirited, those who are marginalized and suffering.
His fame for almost miraculous deeds quickly spreads throughout Jerusalem, and he becomes known for bold preaching that extends far beyond the considerations agreeable to dominant Judaism. End quote. Stephen, unlike others who might appease, is not afraid to challenge the status quo, to speak uncomfortable truths to power. This unwavering conviction, this uncompromising declaration of Jesus' revolutionary message, will inevitably lead him into direct confrontation with the very forces that drove his family to ruin, particularly with the established religious authorities.
And that brings us to the formidable figure of Saul of Tarsus. Our source gives us this detailed, almost imposing portrait. He's roughly 30 years old, described as virile and masculinely beautiful, with deep and penetrating eyes that reflect his passionate and indomitable temperament. He's clearly a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. His background is also incredibly illuminating and helps us understand his motivations. He's the son of a humble weaver, but his father achieved immense success as a caravan merchant, which instilled in Saul this powerful belief that a man's progress depends on his own effort.
Ah, the self-made man.
Exactly. You can see how that shaped his entire worldview, a belief in meritocracy, self-reliance, hard work. This self-made man mentality fuels his overriding ambition, and not just personal advancement, but to increase my prestige among the rabbis, and to restore Jerusalem's eternal hegemony over rivals like Rome and Athens. He is presented as a powerful, driven intellectual, absolutely dedicated to his Jewish faith and its dominance, a champion of the established order.
It's fascinating how his personal life reflects this ambition and his deep-seated traditional values. He's engaged to Abigail, who, as we know, is currently seeking refuge with Zacharias near Joppa. He has very specific plans for her to join his sister Delilah in Jerusalem. He envisions Abigail as a perfect exponent of a race developed among the ancient beauties of Corinth, reflecting his pride in his heritage and his conventional, almost strategic view of marriage as a means to uphold tradition and status.
This deep-seated conventionality and pride in his heritage makes his disdain for the men of the way all the more stark and visceral. He dismisses them as poor, ragged, and ignorant Galileans, noting his profound revulsion at their appearance, describing them as a cripple barely covered in rags next to tattered orphans. This highlights his rigid social and religious hierarchy, where appearance, status, and adherence to established law are paramount. Anything outside that framework is seen as a threat and beneath contempt.
Then comes the explosive synagogue showdown, a moment of direct ideological collision. Stephen delivers a powerful sermon, his voice clear and vibrant, resonating with conviction. He boldly declares freedom through Christ, directly challenging Israel's long wait for the Messiah, asserting Jesus as the Son of God illuminating the path. And he doesn't hold back. He sharply critiques Israel's selfishness and moral decay, implying their spiritual failings despite receiving the divine law through Moses. It's a revolutionary message delivered with revolutionary zeal.
And his radical assertion that Jesus carried out his task among the simplest and most unfortunate, and that the kingdom is of the upright conscience and the purified heart, is a direct assault on the Pharisaical establishment that Saul so fiercely embodies. This isn't just a theological dispute, it's a social and spiritual revolution, challenging the very power structures and the definition of righteousness that Saul has dedicated his life to upholding. Stephen is essentially saying true spirituality isn't found in rigid adherence to external laws or status, but in internal purity and humble service, a direct threat to Saul's worldview.
Saul's reaction is, predictably, furious, almost furious. He immediately accuses Stephen of proclaiming the false supremacy of an obscure Nazarene over Moses, the very foundation of their faith. What's even more telling is that he's disconcerted by Stephen's calm, almost witty retort. It's a good thing the Messiah was a carpenter, because in that case, humanity would no longer be without shelter. That line. It's such a clever, cutting response that clearly hits Saul where it hurts, perhaps highlighting the unexpected humility of Jesus' origins.
It absolutely disarms him, forcing him to confront a truth he's not ready to accept, and the tensions only escalate from there, reaching a fever pitch. During the sermon, Stephen performs a dramatic interruption by healing a mute girl. Saul, true to his rigid worldview and his desire to dismiss Stephen's power, immediately condemns it as witchcraft.
Of course.
But Stephen's humble response again shifts the focus, denying any personal power and attributing it all to Jesus. It was not I who performed this act of love, it was Christ through my poverty. He denies personal glory and elevates the power of his master.
After this confrontational encounter, Saul visits Abigail, recounting the events with a chilling resolve. He declares that Stephen will pay dearly for the humiliation he sought to inflict publicly. Abigail's response, as noted in the source, is sympathetic but notably cautious, perhaps sensing the incredibly dangerous path Saul is treading, a path that could lead to irreversible consequences.
Saul's exasperation deepens as Stephen consistently refuses to engage in a formal intellectual debate, which is Saul's preferred arena for asserting dominance. This refusal, for Saul, is an affront, a sign of weakness or cowardice. As a result, Saul devised a vast plan to force Stephen into a public dispute, intending to humiliate him before all the leaders of dominant Judaism, to utterly discredit him and the way in the eyes of the religious elite. He's clearly invested not just in theological truth, but in public humiliation and the assertion of his own unassailable authority.
And this plan, fueled by Saul's intense zeal, leads directly to what can only be described as a mockery of justice. Stephen's trial and condemnation before the Sanhedrin. Stephen arrives with remarkable dignity, serenely accompanied by 2 guards, completely composed amidst the chaos. He immediately observes the stark contrast between the humble Christian community he serves and the avarice and disorder of the Jewish authorities, setting the stage for his powerful defense, which will be a stark indictment of their hypocrisy.
His defense is truly eloquent and unflinching. He declares his veneration for the law and sacred scriptures, acknowledging their divine origin. But then he makes this crucial distinction, asserting that the gospel of Jesus is their divine. The former are the work of men, the latter is God's reward to faithful workers. He identifies Jesus as living and permanent love, elevating the gospel above human interpretation of the law, portraying it as the true fulfillment. This is a profound theological statement, directly challenging the very foundation of the Sanhedrin's authority.
Saul, of course, responds with predictable and indignant fury, condemning Stephen as a slanderer liable to punishment. He doubles down on his earlier accusation, citing the healing of the mute girl as proof of Stephen's sorcery. But Stephen, ever brilliant and spiritually inspired, delivers a powerful counter-argument, questioning how Moses' own miracles were performed if not by sorcery. It completely disarms Saul's accusation by turning it back on their own revered history, highlighting the hypocrisy.
Stephen's speech continues, inspired and courageous, revealing a spiritual depth that transcends mere legal argument. He reminds Israel of its historical suffering and persecution, but doesn't shy away from highlighting its selfishness and moral decay, famously calling Jerusalem a large bazaar where sacred things are sold. This is a scathing prophetic critique, directly challenging their perceived righteousness and spiritual purity. An accusation of corruption at the very heart of their religious life.
The mob's reaction is instantaneous and violent. A visceral outpouring of uncontrolled rage. Stone the impure one. Let's kill the slanderer. Anathema to the way of Satan. And then, the personal, brutal touch that reveals Saul's intense, almost uncontrollable fury. He physically assaults Stephen, settling his clenched fists on his face. It's an act of raw, personal rage, not just legal condemnation.
Unbelievable.
Yet, Stephen's response is stoic and dignified, echoing the teachings of his master. Peace differs from violence as much as the strength of Christ differs from yours. He embodies the very teachings he preaches, demonstrating an almost otherworldly calm in the face of such brutality.
Fortunately, Gamaliel, Saul's own revered teacher and a figure of considerable wisdom, intervenes, moderating the escalating situation. He postpones the immediate execution, but orders Stephen's imprisonment and a broader investigation into the way. This provides a temporary reprieve for Stephen, but the path to martyrdom, as the source makes clear, is already tragically set. It's a delay, not a cancellation.
And then, the horrifying culmination. The gruesome ceremony of Stephen's public execution in the temple courtyard. The narrative uses a chilling detail that places Saul directly at the heart of this brutality. As the leader of the persecutors, he collects the shining mantles adorned with purple from the executioners holding them. A symbolic act of ownership over the violence, a silent endorsement of the stones being thrown.
What's truly extraordinary and what our source emphasizes is Stephen's almost superhuman composure in this moment. He walked half-naked, serene, imperturbable, his eyes fixed with crystalline goodness. Despite the brutal stoning, with individual executioners aiming carefully, Saul observes Stephen's unknown tranquility amidst the chaos. This detail is crucial. It hints at the very first seeds of internal struggle and doubt beginning to form within Saul. He's witnessing something he cannot logically reconcile with his worldview, even as he orchestrates the violence. It's the beginning of a crack in his formidable intellectual armor.
And Stephen's final words, delivered through his immense suffering, are incredibly powerful and profoundly resonant. A recitation of Psalm 23, a psalm of comfort and trust, and then simply, Jesus, receive my spirit. He dies with a prayer on his lips, mirroring the very last words of his master, a profound act of faith, even in martyrdom.
But the scene takes an agonizing, unexpected turn with Abigail's sudden, devastating arrival. Her Greek-style tunic contrasts sharply with the gruesome, bloody scene, making her presence all the more jarring. Her immediate horror and gasp at the victim's miserable situation are visceral. Then comes her gradual, agonizing realization, a dawning horror. Would it not be her brother?
Oh, the timing.
Her frantic pleas to Saul, Saul, he is my brother, begging for just 1 minute to speak to him, are truly heart-wrenching. The personal connection suddenly becomes undeniably, terrifyingly real for Saul.
Saul's reaction is a chaotic mix of initial shock, disbelief, and desperate denial, stammering, No, it's him. He fiercely silences Abigail, attempting to shield her from the horror, and immediately orders Stephen's corpse removed to the priest's chamber, desperately trying to control the uncontrollable, to suppress the terrible truth that is now staring him in the face. He has just participated in the murder of the brother of the woman he loves.
Yet, even in his final moments, Jeziel, now Stephen, manages to speak. In his last, faltering words to Abigail, he affirms his death, the soul's immortality, and his promise to help her from beyond. He reassures her that Jesus is just and merciful and taught me to love my very persecutors. But then comes the truly poignant and almost prophetic moment, a statement that seems to defy all logic and human emotion. He offers a blessing upon Saul and Abigail, declaring, Christ bless them, I do not have an enemy in your fiancé, I have a brother.
Incredible forgiveness.
And chillingly, he prophesies Saul's future conversion. He will defend Moses until the end. When he knows Jesus, he will serve him with the same fervor. It's a moment of profound spiritual insight from a dying man, a vision of redemption for his persecutor.
Saul's visceral reaction to this is incredibly telling, a glimpse into the tempest raging within him. He's profoundly disturbed, thinking he wanted to be hated, cursed. He battles his deep emotional response to Stephen's compassion, struggling not to be moved, to maintain his hardened exterior. It's clear Stephen's forgiveness has pierced him in a way no argument ever could, chipping away at his rigid certainties. As Jeziel dies in Abigail's arms, she offers a final, heartbroken prayer.
But Saul's response is cold, definitive, and utterly brutal. Abigail, all is fulfilled, and all is also over between us. He severs their engagement, humiliating her publicly in this moment of profound grief. Abigail senses the deep, unforgiving shift in him, a profound rejection that changes everything, sealing the fate of their relationship in his former life. It's a shattering conclusion to that chapter for both of them.
And this act, this coldness, this brutal severing, marks the beginning of Abigail's own quiet internal conversion, a seed planted in sorrow. She questions Saul's harshness, trying to reconcile his character with this inexplicable cruelty, and begins to ponder the unknown and hated Jesus. She reasons, to seduce a crystalline character like Jaziel, Price could not be an ordinary man. This moment, born of her brother's martyrdom and Saul's brutality, shifts her entire worldview. The suffering has opened her heart to a new truth. The aftermath is grim and unfolds rapidly. Gamaliel, Saul's former mentor, has a private conversation with him, confirming his impending withdrawal to the desert. He reveals his own deep conclusions about the so-called carpenter of Nazareth, hinting that he, too, has been profoundly impacted. But he admits he's too old and broken to initiate a new movement. This suggests a quiet acknowledgement of truth in Gamaliel himself, a truth he's not ready to publicly embrace, but one that points to the pervasive influence of the way. Abigail immediately succumbs to a severe fever, a physical manifestation of her deep trauma and grief, necessitating her return to Zacharias' house. Saul facilitates this, perhaps a last flicker of care, but he departs with no intention of returning to Joppa, cementing the finality. Without Gamaliel's moderating influence or Abigail's generous inspirations, Saul unleashes unbridled, furious persecution of the way in Jerusalem. He's depicted as a madman, consumed by rage, blaming Christ for the ruination of his life's plans and the loss of his love. It's a terrifying, almost unhinged zeal.
The consequence is a widespread exodus of Christians from Jerusalem under Saul's relentless tyrannies, as the city began to depopulate itself with workers. Saul's zeal for persecution intensifies, becoming an obsession, a desperate attempt to quash the very truth that is gnawing at his soul. This sets the stage for the dramatic and utterly transformative events yet to come, as his path inevitably leads to a direct, unavoidable encounter with the one he persecutes. And those events begin to unfold 8 months after Stephen's death. Despite his public rage and relentless persecution, deep down, Saul is still driven by a profound longing and love for Abigail. He returns to Joppa, perhaps a final desperate attempt to reclaim a semblance of his former life, intending to omit all and any allusion to the carpenter of Nazareth in their conversation, as if by ignoring it, the truth would just disappear.
But Zacharias delivers devastating news, a blow that shatters Saul's already fragile composure. Abigail is dying of a lung illness, having been ill for 4 months. He recounts her spiritual transformation during this period after meeting a poor old man named Ananias, who gave her some scrolls with the teachings of the famous carpenter of Nazareth. This revelation, that Abigail found peace in the very teachings he persecuted, must have been a profound shock, undermining his entire furious mission.
Even in her decline, Abigail's unwavering defense of Saul is remarkable, a testament to her enduring love and the peace she found. She found deep consolations in the gospel, transforming her pain into a comforting expression of inner joy. It's a stark contrast to Saul's own tormented, rage-filled state, isn't it? Highlighting the peace she found in the very teachings he vehemently persecutes. Her quiet faith shines even as her life fades.
Saul experiences profound anguish and deep remorse, admitting he had never experienced such acute moral pain. His past actions, his relentless persecution, his role in Stephen's death, and now Abigail's suffering all are laid bare before him. A crushing weight of regret. Abigail's final words, delivered with immense difficulty, urge him not to despair and reaffirm her love and profound faith in Jesus. I do not feel discouraged. Jesus was not an ordinary master of sorcery. He was the Messiah, bestower of consolation and life. She sees him as a guide for all. She's not just speaking to him, but prophesying to him, offering him the very peace she has found.
And then her last breath, with a radiant, almost exultant cry. Jaziel has come for me. It's a powerful image of spiritual triumphs and reunion, a profound witness to her faith. But Saul's immediate guttural reaction is a desperate, heartbroken, all is fulfilled, followed by his harsh final rejection of Abigail, and all is also over between us. This moment encapsulates his personal devastation and the final definitive severing of his old life, his old beliefs, his old identity. It's the ultimate loss, bringing him to a point of spiritual vacuum.
Saul spends 3 days in profound mourning after Abigail's death, consumed by self-reproach for his implacable persecution, his inflexible pride, and the annihilation of all possibilities of happiness. He's plunged into an abyss of despair, recognizing the immense wreckage he has caused. Yet from this deep abyss, a renewed, fervent resolve, twisted and misdirected, emerges. He will galvanize personal hatred for the scorned Messiah, dedicating his entire being to persecuting the way even more fiercely. It's a desperate attempt to find meaning in his pain, to project his internal torment outward.
He departs Jerusalem, armed with letters of authority from the Sanhedrin to arrest dangerous elements in Damascus, specifically targeting Ananias, the very man who brought Abigail solace. This highlights his institutional power and fanatical zeal, now driven by a deep personal anguish transmuted into an even more destructive fervor. The arduous journey to Damascus is marked by bitter memories and growing deep interrogations about the purpose and direction of his life. Even as he hunts, the seeds of doubt are sowing themselves beneath his fierce exterior, his convictions beginning to fray.
And then the dramatic, world-shattering climax of his journey. At midday, on a desolate and arduous road, a blinding light from heaven, described as expanding to infinity, suddenly envelops him, causing him to fall from his animal. He experiences a vision expanding to infinity, revealing the figure of a majestically beautiful man, descending from heaven to meet him. The description is incredibly vivid: a luminous tunic, flowing hair, magnetic eyes emanating sympathy and love, and an aura of divine sadness. It's an overwhelming sensory experience designed to pierce through his stubbornness.
The voice that follows this blinding light is unforgettable and profoundly resonant.
Saul, why do you persecute me?
It's a direct personal challenge from the very one he's been persecuting. Saul's instinctive reaction is immediate, desperate kneeling, overwhelmed by an irresistible feeling of veneration. His companions perceive the light but hear no voice, underscoring the intensely personal, unshareable nature of this divine encounter, meant only for Saul.
His trembling question, uttered from a place of profound humility and terror, "Who are you, Lord?" is met with the world-shattering reply, "I am Jesus." This is the moment of his complete spiritual collapse and rebirth. Saul immediately falls into convulsive weeping, experiencing a profound realization. The passionate rabbi of Jerusalem had been mortally wounded. He recognizes the truth of Stephen's words, the profound witness of his martyrdom, and Abigail's unwavering faith. He understands with absolute certainty that the marvelous story of his resurrection was not a legendary device. It was profound, unalterable truth.
Jesus then delivers a cryptic warning, yet one that speaks directly to Saul's inner struggle. It is hard for you to kick against the goads. Think of a goad like a sharp stick used by a farmer to drive an ox. If the ox resists, it only hurts itself more. Saul immediately understands this as the inner spiritual forces that had been compelling him, nudging him, even tormenting him, ever since his first encounter with Stephen. It's an acknowledgement of the persistent divine call he had resisted and the pain it had caused him.
His first, tear-soaked profession of faith signals his complete surrender, a powerful moment of submission for a man who previously sought only dominance. "Lord, what do you want me to do?" His companions are bewildered, believing he is delirious, and decide to take him to a doctor, completely missing the profound spiritual transformation. Saul, now blind, passively accepts his newfound dependence on others. His mighty intellect and fierce will, once so unyielding, are utterly humbled, stripped bare.
Saul's arrival in Damascus is a stark portrait of his new reality. He is now blind and separated from his own, completely helpless. He's led to Zadok's house by Jacob, who then departs, leaving Saul utterly alone and helpless in a strange city. A dramatic reversal of his former power.
This enforced solitude becomes a crucible for his soul. He enters a period of intense prayer and introspection, shedding his former identity and recognizing his profound spiritual need. No longer seeking worldly status or rabbinical prestige, his desperate plea is for divine protection. He desperately pleads with Jesus to clarify his mind tormented by ideas of anguish and helplessness. It's a complete, radical shift in his priorities and his understanding of power, from earthly ambition to spiritual clarity.
And then, the unexpected miraculous healing. Ananias arrives, divinely guided, addressing Saul intimately as Brother Saul. This simple greeting, coming from someone Saul had intended to persecute to arrest, must have been overwhelming. A profound act of grace and forgiveness extended to him.
It is truly a moment of immense grace. Saul's emotional reaction is visceral. Crystalline tears flow, clearly indicating his profound inner transformation, the breaking down of his hardened heart. He attempts to kiss Ananias' hands and tunic, a symbolic gesture of humility and dependence. A truly remarkable change for the proud Pharisee, who once commanded respect and instilled fear. Ananias responds with words of acceptance and joy. This is our great day. Let us embrace in the sacred memory of the Master who united us in his great love.
The miraculous restoration of Saul's sight is immediate, a physical manifestation of his profound spiritual awakening. His exultant cry encapsulates his conversion, a powerful declaration of his new purpose. You have resurrected me for Jesus, I will be his eternally. It's no longer Saul, the persecutor, the zealous Pharisee, but Saul, the devoted servant, reborn with a new vision.
Ananias then provides Saul with a detailed recount of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, including his own experience witnessing the crucifixion from a distance and his subsequent conviction. Saul's singular and intense interest in the gospel is striking. He's utterly captivated. He immediately obtains a copy of Levi's or Matthew's writings and meticulously copies them, driven by this urgent, burning desire to spread the new revelation as widely as possible. His formidable intellectual rigor is now dedicated entirely to the gospel, turning his zeal from persecution to proclamation.
This intense study and newfound conviction leads to Saul's bold first proclamation in the Damascus synagogue, where he once sought to bring chaos. He declares Jesus as the Messiah, aligning him with the ancient prophets, and directly challenges the Pharisees' rigid formalism and hypocrisy, speaking of their ulcers and darkness. This mirrors Stephen's courageous critique, showing that Saul has fully embraced the radical truth he once fought against, now speaking with the very fire he once sought to extinguish.
The inevitable uproar follows, a direct echo of what Stephen faced. It's him! It's the traitor! Stone the blasphemer! Saul experiences the very persecution he once inflicted, a dramatic and ironic reversal of his former power and authority. This leads to his immediate arrest and imprisonment, proving that his conversion hasn't made his path easier, but rather has shifted the source of his conflict and put him on the side of the persecuted.
Ananias visits Saul in prison, and together they devise a daring plan for his escape, lowering him in a wicker basket from the city walls. This is an evocative allusion to Moses' own miraculous survival, emphasizing divine protection and a new, divinely ordained path for Saul. Saul expresses a moment of hesitation, a flicker of his former adherence to law. Is it right to flee like this? I have committed no crime. Yet he resolves to face Jerusalem, not as a coward, but to affirm himself sincere and true, highlighting his newfound integrity and commitment to his mission, no matter the personal cost.
Saul's return to Jerusalem after 3 years of solitary reflection in the desert reveals a physically transformed man. He is thin and pale, with a long beard, a visible testament to his intense penitence and profound spiritual journey, a physical manifestation of the internal revolution.
He attempts to reconnect with old friends like Alexander, who dismisses his conversion as illness, delirium, or madness, unable to comprehend such a radical change. The news Alexander delivers is devastating, piling on the personal cost of Saul's past. His family has abandoned Jerusalem, his parents returned to Tarsus, and his mother died, all due to Saul's actions and the immense disgrace they brought upon their household.
Despite this crushing news, Saul displays profound humility and acceptance of being misunderstood, recalling that even Moses taught goodness, a stark contrast to his past zealotry. This radical shift from his former arrogance demonstrates the depth of his transformation, embracing humility where he once demanded deference. Truly a new man, softened by suffering.
His cautious approach to joining the men of the way at Peter's house is met with immediate shock from Proculus, a disciple who recognizes their former persecutor. Peter, wise and cautious, remembering Saul's direct role in Stephen's death, convenes a meeting of the leaders, James, John, and Barnabas, to deliberate on whether to accept Saul. Peter acknowledges Saul did us all the harm he could, but also emphasizes the imperative of forgiveness, a core tenet of their new faith. It's a moment of profound tension.
Barnabas, however, plays a crucial role here, embodying the spirit of reconciliation. He intervenes with eloquent advocacy for Saul, vouching for his genuine humility and fragile health. Barnabas personally brings Saul to Peter. Peter is visibly astonished at Saul's stark physical change, hollow eyes, extreme organic weakness, which profoundly impacts the other apostles. This physical suffering and transformation signals the depth of his journey, softening their skepticism and signaling the genuineness of his repentance, a powerful moment of acceptance.
So how did this profound radical change happen? Our source reveals that Gamaliel's advice to Saul in the desert was key. Embrace solitude and manual labor as a weaver, as a means to exterminate the old man, to shed his former self. Gamaliel even provides Saul with his own precious copy of Matthew's Gospel, a symbolic passing of wisdom from master to former student, from the Old Covenant to the New.
Saul then journeys to the oases of Dan, 50 miles from Palmyra, where he joins Aquila and Priscilla, a young couple of weavers who were themselves refugees from Saul's earlier persecutions in Jerusalem. This unexpected meeting of persecutor and persecuted sets the stage for deep reconciliation and the living embodiment of Christian forgiveness. Profound, almost poetic irony.
Their shared life becomes one of arduous work and devoted meditation on the gospel, which becomes the only book of their meditations in the remote desert. This period of quiet, disciplined labor, away from the clamor of the world, is clearly essential for Saul's spiritual reformation, grounding him in humility and the core teachings of Jesus.
And here, the past must be fully confronted, not intellectually, but personally. Aquila recounts the tragic story of his father's death during Saul's persecution, directly ordered by a fanatical assistant named Josiah. This deeply personal account forces Saul to confront the tangible, painful consequences of his past actions, making them real and immediate, tearing down any remaining emotional walls.
Saul's profound confession follows, a moment of raw, painful honesty. He reveals his identity as Saul of Tarsus and accepts full, unvarnished responsibility for the suffering he caused. He declares with profound humility, "Jesus tore the miserable tunic of my illusions." This is a pivotal moment of deep, agonizing introspection and honesty, a true reckoning with his past, shedding the very last vestiges of his old, proud identity.
And then the radical act of forgiveness, embodying the very essence of the gospel. Aquila and Priscilla embrace Saul, solidifying a moment of profound reconciliation and embodying the very teachings Saul is now studying and striving to live. A powerful testament to the transformative power of love and forgiveness, capable of healing even the deepest wounds.
It's here, in this solitude, that a profound realization dawns on Saul, a spiritual insight that ties his entire journey together. Stephen, after his death, became Saul's spiritual guide and companion for 30 years. The narrative explicitly states that the first victim of the persecutions in Jerusalem remained forever united to the first persecutor. This highlights the spiritual interconnectedness of their journey and the redemptive power of forgiveness, where even martyrdom can lead to unexpected guidance. What an incredible testament to the enduring power of a spiritual connection.
This shared experience and profound forgiveness also ignites a burgeoning missionary zeal within Aquila and Priscilla. They develop a growing, enthusiastic desire to proclaim the favors of Jesus throughout the world, even dreaming of traveling to Rome to spread the gospel. It shows the transformative power of the faith extending beyond personal redemption to a universal calling, radiating outward.
Saul, too, has an internal recognition that Jesus desires him to be reconciled with all those he offended in Jerusalem, and even to see my parents before embarking on a new, wider mission. This desire for reconciliation and filial duty is now paramount, a prerequisite almost, before his global calling, indicating the deep personal healing that had to happen first.
His next step is a return to the fire, so to speak. He journeys back to Damascus, where he is welcomed warmly by Ananias and the Brothers of the Way, finding open and loving hospitality within the Christian community, a safe haven from his old life.
But his mission isn't just about fellowship, it's about courageous confrontation. He makes the decisive choice to confront the Jewish formalists in the synagogue once more, aiming to clearly articulate the fundamental differences between the rigid adherence to circumcision and the liberating new faith of Christ. A message of spiritual freedom over legalistic bondage.
His sermon, just as before, sparks immediate recognition and a violent riot as he is denounced as traitor and blasphemer. This demonstrates the unyielding opposition he will continue to face, showcasing that his conversion hasn't made his path easier, but rather has shifted the source of his conflict and placed him directly in the crosshairs of those he once championed.
Yet again, a miraculous escape. He is lowered in a basket from the city walls by the brothers, a testament to his continued divine protection and the community's unwavering support in his new, dangerous mission. He's truly under a new form of protection now.
He then journeys back to Jerusalem, where he faces initial suspicion and understandable rejection from the apostles due to his past. It's Barnabas who again provides a crucial intervention and powerful advocacy, personally bringing Saul to Peter and vouching for his sincere conversion, bridging the gap and validating his transformation.
Peter once again is visibly astonished at Saul's physical appearance, noting his extreme organic weakness, the visible toll of his intense journey and suffering. This profoundly moves the apostles and signifies the depth of Saul's personal suffering, the genuineness of his transformation. It's hard to deny the profound change in this man.
This leads to Saul's full acceptance by the Jerusalem apostles, a significant step in his reintegration and validating his transformation. He embraces his new identity, becoming absolutely devoted to the service of Jesus, focusing his energy on the needs of the children of Calvary, the suffering and the outcast. A beautiful, poignant detail from the source. He even begins to show interest in the smile of little children, symbolizing a profound softening of his once hardened, zealous heart.
He makes an unwavering resolve to live as a disciple of Jesus bound to his programs, choosing the humble path of a Bedouin over his former status as a doctor of the law, a scholar of immense prestige. This signifies his complete detachment from worldly accolades and his fervent commitment to radical self-denial for his mission, choosing service over status.
What's truly fascinating here, and what the source profoundly emphasizes, is the ultimate realization that all his past suffering and humility were not merely painful experiences, but essential crucibles for his spiritual growth. They were preparing him, shaping him for the immense task ahead. His entire journey becomes a powerful testament to how even the most resistant, zealous heart can be transformed through suffering, through divine intervention, and through profound forgiveness, leading to an entirely new purpose and a life dedicated to a higher calling.
So what does this all mean for us? We've journeyed through a tale of profound transformation, haven't we? From initial injustice to deep faith, from zealous persecution to humble service, from bitter loss to transcendent purpose. It's a story that beautifully illustrates the boundless capacity for change within the human spirit, even when facing the most entrenched beliefs, the deepest personal losses, and the most dramatic reversals of fortune.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this narrative raises an important question that resonates across time. How does radical suffering, or radical compassion shown by others, act as a catalyst for profound, often unforeseen, personal change? We see how deeply held convictions, whether of vengeance or of faith, can shape entire lives and movements, often in ways that are surprising and deeply challenging. The source material emphasizes that even for the most hardened heart, for the most unyielding intellect, there's always a path to understanding, a new purpose waiting to be discovered, and a radical transformation waiting to unfold.
What stands out to you about this incredible journey and the surprising way personal destinies and spiritual paths intertwined, culminating in such profound transformation? How might the treasure of life found in these ancient narratives offer insights into our own struggles with information overload, with personal bias, and finding genuine, transformative understanding today? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that shape our world.